Welcome back to Writing in the Raw. This is episode 8. 7 or 8? 7 or 8? Let's find out. I've forgotten. Ay. This is not the easy way to do this. Boop. 8. It's episode 8. Look at that. We did a thing. Welcome back to episode 8. We're going to do something weird today. We're going to talk about the story of Jesus. I was thinking about storytelling, and I was just really thinking about how the story of Jesus kind of sucks. And I was like, is there something to be learned here as a storyteller going into, everything about Jesus's life start to finish just kind of sucks. It's not what I'd write. It's really, there's a lot of it is involved. There's a lot of these currents, and in modern age, it just sucks because there's just too much out there. Like if you were to Google, and I did this a little bit, and then I was like, I'm just going to start with a blank page and just say what I think I know about the subject. But what I was doing before is I was researching a little bit. If you Googled right now, like, were the shepherds dirty outcasts from Jerusalem in the time of Christ, like for the Jews, or were they like reputable members of society? You're going to get people on both sides saying, oh yeah, they were total outcasts, and other people like, oh, they're not outcasts. So it's so weird to me because we've gone from an age of information to the age right past that. We passed that exit sign and we went right through to the age of misinformation. It only took us like 20 years. We went internet, peak information, and now we're in the age of misinformation. We're in the age where you can't trust pictures on the internet anymore. You can't trust videos on the internet anymore. You can't trust. So like the only thing that we have again is like that people to people, or that I heard from someone and I learned. These things are very powerful. Unfortunately, we're not doing a better job with our internal filters, myself included, because human beings, I don't think we were created to instantly have filters up. I think we were created to hear people, and I think we were created to believe, and I think we were created to believe the best in people. Over time, that gets eroded, or things change. But intrinsically, if we see something, we want to believe it. And I believe that. I believe that. It's true of my own life. I see it in my son more strongly than I do in my own life. I feel like I've become jaded in a lot of different areas. But I don't want to be. So anyway, we're going to talk about why the story of Jesus kind of sucks, because it's kind of icky. Like, do you think Harry Potter had problems? I'm sorry, the Dursleys, like, crappy situation, but like, compared to Jesus, this is craziness. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, this is probably distracting. I apologize. There we go. Let's just get rid of that. Okay. And then we go boop like that, and it makes it bigger. Look at that. So here we go. What do we know? Let's do this a little bit bigger so we can actually see that. Let's do H1 for this. What was happening at that time? So essentially what we're asking for is, what is the setting, right? What is the setting of this thing? I'm just going to spit out a couple of more questions. What was the setting? That's kind of going to be our big one. What was his goal, right? Why tell this story, right? Especially because a lot of people, they believe, and you can believe, you believe whatever you want, and you be convinced of that, right? If you believe something, be convinced of that. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And the things that I believe, I had a father who was very, she's still alive, so I don't know my past tense, but growing up, my dad was very analytical. He still is to this day, and very, like, he was a master of poking holes at different arguments. There's a story from my little sister where she was like 10 and she really wanted a Tamagotchi. Again, dated reference, go Google that, whatever. And she really wanted a Tamagotchi. And so she had to type out She felt as a 10-year-old girl that she had to type out an argument for why a Tamagotchi would like teach her responsibility and actually be a good thing, a positive thing in her life. Like, just imagine that. So that's the upbringing that I had, which was really positive in the sense that today I don't really feel like I get swayed by a bunch of things. I have to actively work to open up and be like, I want to see if this thing that I've believed for a very long time is wrong or needs to get reshaped. They actually say that, according to psychologists, they actually say that the more intelligent people are harder to convince of something if they have like a higher IQ. So we're talking cerebral intelligence. I believe there are many different types of intelligence. I believe emotional intelligence is incredibly underrated, and I believe that that's something you can't test really well. Like, you don't get an A+ for being an emotional intellectual. I have at least 2 men in my life right now that are like emotional giants, where I'll tell them something and they'll be like, oh, let's unpack that feeling of like, why are you feeling that way? And did you know this emotion is because of this, and this, and they'll ask you questions to pull these things out, very counselor esque. And it's very beneficial to hang around people with high emotional IQ. Anyway, lots of different types of brain power, basically, and ways that you can be smart. So cerebral people, high intellectual IQ, are harder to convince of things to change their mind. It's harder to change their minds than people who aren't as high up on the intellectual spectrum of intelligence. So that's interesting to me. And I think the main, like, an example would be, did you know broccoli is good for you? Well, I know that according to this study, broccoli actually inflames the guts and blah, blah, blah. I'm making this up. Don't stop eating broccoli. All 5 of you who are watching this. But do you see how you can do that? Just intellectually, you can do this versus someone who hears, yeah, broccoli is good for you, and they have no other basis or no other conflicting things in their mind. They're like, cool, maybe I'll try broccoli type thing. So you can see how a full cup, there's this expression that says you can't put anything in a full cup. And I firmly believe that it is our jobs, especially as we get older, right? As I'm knocking on the door to my 40s, just being like, let's empty the cup out a little bit, right? Like, I don't want to go into this argument. I don't want to go into this space knowing everything. So what I want to do is I want to empty the cup a little bit about the story of Jesus and say, I am coming to it with a bent of, it was pretty sucky. Like, we've been going through Advent right now and going through different stories, and I just can't help but to think how sucky it was. So I'm going to put that. That's our next thing. H1, why did it suck? So, and actually, I want to pull that up for now. I'll put that there. Why not? It's still there. What's going on here, Notion? What you doing there, bud? Okay, let's rock and roll. I've spent a lot of time haranguing about different things. What was happening at the time of Jesus? Let's go. Herod the Great was a big deal. That should probably all be capitalized. I don't really care. We're just blasting away. Herod the Great was in charge of Jerusalem. No. Man, I can't spell. Is that an E? That's an E. Oh, I knew it was an E. Thank you, little Grammarly. Herod the Great was in charge of Jerusalem. The Jews were not amused. He was not amused. It's funny, I've got my 4-year-old saying that right now. Daddy, Mommy was not amused, and it's fantastic. It's a teach your kids that. The Jews were not amused. What else was going on? Tensions in Rome were high. I don't really care about that. Famines were happening, wars were happening, insurrections were happening, uprising. There were several false messiahs. Messiahs had just come through. So what does that mean? The Jews were fatigued. How did I spell fatigued right, but I can't spell Jerusalem? Explain to me that, brain. The Jews were fatigued. The French word fatigué. I made that up. It's not. Don't. Yeah, put a comment. That's cringe. Jews were fatigued with the whole thing, but still expectant, right? And we'll get to that a little later. Like, that isn't, I guess Messiah is capitalized? No. False messiahs, several false messiahs. Yes, that is not a approximate. Thank you. I'm not with it today. I have not slept well in the last while. Anyway, we're still here. We're doing this. I genuinely had nothing to do. Like, this week was murder at work, and it was, I say that very tongue in cheek because I adore my job. I have a fantastic job. It was very high stress, and I actually didn't write anything this week. So if we go to the Foxes, there are no Foxes this week. So I thought, all right, fine, let's put a pause. Let's do a Christmas season thing. I have explained this twice, so we are going to carry on. What's the goal of the Jesus story? Why was his goal? I don't know. Hope. It's amazing if you study the global effect of Jesus. And I know there are very real, tangible, horrible things that have been done in the name of Jesus. And that is not to diminish any of that. I was thinking, I just saw, a preview of something, some like Irish or story about these nuns who are forcing these women to give up their kids or have abortions or something. It's just like horrible things, right? Like, I in my own life have experienced some pretty nasty things done in the name of Jesus, and still here we are, because there's so many other stories around the world of people being healed or getting through things or hanging with their spouses through sickness and just really leaning on Jesus. Like, I gotta keep believing in that. I think that's the goal of this story, is hope. The children's Bibles do this better than I think other Bibles do. They're just like, from the beginning, there is this story. Jesus, like God the Father, wanted he wanted to like show himself to the world, so he created the universe, and then he wanted people to come close to him, but then they chose to disobey him, and he was like devastated. But he wasn't done there. He had another plan. And so it takes you through the Old Testament, where it's like the sacrificial system is like, yeah, like, you have to understand that when you do bad things, like, there has to be justice, like something has to happen, and our hearts cry for that. I was thinking of the Hunter Biden pardon this week, and I was thinking of other pardons from Trump, like on all sides, right? When you see this injustice, when you see this, like, oh yeah, you've got special magical unicorn powers where the crimes you committed aren't going to affect you anymore. The cross is like that. It's like that, but for everyone and fairly. It's fair to everyone except for the dude on the cross. That's another reason why the story of Jesus just sucks. It's like a really lonely, rough, nasty life, and it starts early. So let's do that. Let's start. We're not going to start with the crucifixion. Why did it suck? The Jews were it was like a Jew low light. It was an awful time to be a Jew. It just was awful time to be a Jew. Why? They were under occupation from the Romans. Their temple had just been destroyed. Why is that significant? Why is the temple significant? Jews and Gentiles alike, the Jews, Gentiles, everyone else, from all over the world. There are like old documents, and Josephus actually talks about this, where he says that Jerusalem was the holy city, like, of the world. Like, people knew, like, that's where you went, kind of this Vatican type thing, if you will, besides the molestation stuff. Again, getting back to what was his goal and hope, and yeah, okay, I'm not negating bad things that have happened. I really am not. I think it's awful. Okay, the temple had just been destroyed, so that was basically like the Vatican being destroyed or something like that, but even more so, because people, like miracles were happening in the temple. Like, people knew the stories of the temple of this God of the Jews. Multiple generations of countries and cultures knew, like there was enough evidence that God was with these Jews as they went in to take the promised land, which is crazy. And it's really charged to say right now. I'm talking historically. I'm not like endorsing killing on any side. Like it's not right. And I think a lot of Christians have to bend over backwards when they start defending countries, and even like Israel right now. So I'm not saying that. When his side was off, they were under occupation. The temple had just been destroyed. He was born a bastard. Like, if you think about, and this is hard because this is a modern context, but let's just run with it for a second, right? Someone across the street is like, oh yeah, like so-and-so is pregnant. And it's like, oh, do they have a father? No, it's like a miraculous birth. And obviously this was different, but like, it kind of wasn't. Like, Mary was still just a girl, right? Like, it's some teen girl who got pregnant, and then her husband, her betrothed, was like, yeah, I'm gonna divorce her. Why did he say, yeah, I'm gonna divorce her? It wasn't because he was like, I totally believe that this was the Holy Spirit. He was like, right? The motivation would be that you connect the dot. That is, you've been sleeping around. You know what I'm saying? And I love Joseph, and I love that there's a little, like, a note in the Bible that's like, yeah, and he didn't have sexual relations with her until the baby was born. I was like, good for you, dude. Like, self-control, right? I don't think that was out of disgust. I think because they had kids later, right? Jesus has siblings, just not like Holy Spirit siblings that were, anyway. I don't think that's out of disgust. I think he was a really cool dude, and I think he was just like, man, this is shameful. Like, I gotta divorce her quietly, and then maybe I can keep, like, maybe I'll find another wife type thing. And that's more than reasonable. This is the first time in the history of mankind that you have a virgins in the forest type thing. So that to me, like, I'm not salty about Joseph doing that. I really am not. But so you have this 16-year-old girl. Jesus is born a bastard to a race of people who would be an awful time to be a Jew. It's cold, right? It's cold. He was born during a census. He was born during a census, which meant that everyone was going bonkers bananas. Every place was full. That was a normal lodging. They were late to the party. Were they late because she was pregnant? She had to pee 9 times on the way over? Were they late because he didn't plan ahead? Did they not have lodging? I don't know why they didn't have lodging, right? It just says there was no place for them at the end of the Bible. I assume there were lots of factors that led up to that, right? So it's a desperate birth. That's a desperate situation. It sucks. It just sucks. And he's in a manger, like a cave type thing at that time, less of like the big red barn, according to what I know. Again, I'm just a dude. I'm not a scholar. I've grew up with this stuff. I've studied this a lot, but I'm by no means a scholar. Put it in the, like, I'm sure the comment section. Tell me all the things. Tell me why I'm wrong, and I will empty out my cup to be filled and to be educated. I love that. So, and then you get into his life. The dude's homeless. Largely, he roams around with this band of men, with his disciples. He doesn't sleep. Sleep deprived, so much so that he's sleeping in a little open boat, right? It's not like a ship, like a galleon with, like, covered with 19 sails. Like, the ship, there's a story where Jesus is asleep in the boat and his disciples are in a storm and they have to go wake him up. bros don't sleep that hard unless they're exhausted, right? And all through the Gospels, if you read it for an eye of a dude that's sleep deprived and like gives all day, and like even the best extrovert would be like, nah, I'm done with these crowds. Like I'm out. But read it with an eye. Read a gospel. I don't know. Read Matthew. Read Mark. Whatever. Whatever you read. But read it with an eye for one dude being exhausted and constantly being pulled. Like his disciples. There's a reason his disciples are like, hey kids. Don't come to him. Like, we don't have time for this. We have bigger fish to fry. His disciples are trying to play bodyguard here and give him like a space to breathe. The crowds are crushing him. There's passages in the Gospels that talk about the crowds pressing in on him. People are just trying to touch his clothes, right? There's that passage where the woman has internal bleeding and she just reaches out and touches his robe, but has faith and is healed. And he stops and he's like, hey, who touched me? And his disciples are like, are you bonkers, dude? Like, do you see everyone touching you? Everyone is touching. Right now there are people, as you're talking, people touching you. And so it's kind of a stressful, sleepless, homeless, crappy thing. Herod tries to kill him. A very Harry Potter, right? Tries to kill him, but he doesn't have that magical, like, mom's magic on the skin. I can't remember why Harry Potter didn't die the first time. His mom's love protected him, I think, was the thing. His mom's love didn't protect him here. There was an angel that told Joseph, get the heck out of here. Herod's going to kill him. And he was like, bye. And then he went down to Egypt. Out of Egypt, I have called my son. What else? Why else? Oh, yeah, he got killed. The dude got killed on a cross for things he didn't do. We can unpack that a little bit, I guess. So we're in Luke. Sorry, let's get back to Herod a little bit. So this is really funny. I went to Gemini and I was like, according to Josephus, summarizes significant events leading up to the rule of Herod the Great. And it just went bop, according to Josephus. And I think this is a fun use of LLMs and GPT, like AI, if you want to call it that. But anyway, here's Herod rising to power, appointed king of Judah by the Roman Senate. They didn't just do this for willy-nilly, okay? He's a warrior. Herod was an Olympian. He excelled in fighting and the javelin throw and bows and marksmanship. The dude was legit. Early Herod life, and I know, like, he's the bad guy. I get that. But early Herod life, he's kind of a rock star. He like tries to get people to surrender and not murder them, and the Jews were like, no, I'm going to commit. There's a cool passage in the Wars of the Jews by Josephus where there are these Jews in the cave, and Herod's like, hey, surrender, and there's this guy, and he just like eye locks him, like pushes his family off the edge, and then himself jumps, and it's like, whoa, like Herod experienced those things. Later Herod, the Herod we get in the Bible, is paranoid, has killed family members, is at the end of his rope, and is just looking for, insurrection under every rock. And these Jews, like, it's very much like the Israeli-Palestine thing, or like in Vietnam where the GIs, would be paranoid of these fighters coming out of the jungle, it's silently stabbing a soldier beside them. These are stories from that war, and then like slitting their throat in their sleeping bag, and then just like retreating back to the jungle. This mental warfare, right? Like Herod's had to deal with that. Like the Jews are constantly trying to like get in there, and for good reason. They're under occupation. They want their temple. So Herod tries to appease them. He builds a new temple. The temple that Jesus goes into is actually a temple that Herod the Great built, right? And Herod the Great built Olympic stadiums, and he built a bunch of infrastructure, and he tried to rebuild different cities. There's a city by the sea that he tried to rebuild unsuccessfully. But anyway, he was actually an interesting dude. Herod's murder of his heir and death. Yeah, like there's like late Herod is crazy. Why is this? So this is interesting. So Pilate, not Herod, right? This is another Roman leader. This is the death of Jesus, the sucky death of Jesus, where he's whipped and the robe put on him. Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, ouch, he delivered him to be crucified. Okay, this wishing to satisfy the crowd is really interesting because there are alternate translations that say not wanting the crowd to riot. Why would you, this big tough Roman leader with assumedly, a bunch of soldiers in the garrison, why would you be afraid of the Jews? That's because of the time. It was incredibly volatile. There were insurrections. People were fighting. The Wars of the Jews is a fascinating read, albeit really dense. I think if someone hasn't already, they should make it, I don't know, dumb that down for a kid, because it would be really cool to read through. I guess that's exactly what this is. Is that what this is? That's pretty much what this is. It's dumbed down. And then here I am like complaining because I can't find passages that I've read before because they don't have word for word stuff. There's Luke. That's when Jesus was born. He was killed. Awful time to be a Jew. The wrong people. Let's add this one. The wrong people came to his birth. Like the shepherds? What the heck? Like, that's not, if I was God, and here's the thing, as a storyteller, if I was God and my son, I was sending my son to be born, it would not be to some little teen girl from an obscure nation who was poor and unable to, they had a donkey. They didn't ride a horse. Like they're poor and they like, it's just not what you would do, right? And then when your son arrived, you would have like some sort of miraculous, like, and then the king was passing by on horseback and looked down and saw the child and said, behold, the son of God type thing. No, who does he send the angels to? The shepherds. Okay, there's a long line of shepherds, right? A lot of the patriarchs were shepherds. David was a shepherd, right? And Jesus himself says, I am the good shepherd, right? There's themes going on. If you want to talk about themes in works, in literature, go read the Bible end to end and just start looking for things. Just look for themes. Look for redemption, look for sacrifice, look for pardon. And there's some really icky Bible stories that I absolutely hate. And we'll unpack some of those. I think that would be a fun use of time. Let me know if you want me to unpack one of those. Give a like and subscribe for that, and put a comment down and just be like, yeah, dude, unpack some crappy stories in the Bible, because there genuinely are some. Like, as my son like asked me questions and we're going through the Bible, I'm like, just don't ask me about that, right? Don't do it. So anyway, I would actually like to unpack some of those, because I think we don't. I think Christians in general shy away from certain topics and certain stories in the Bible. And I don't think we should. Let's hit them head on. Let's rock and roll. So anyway, this is why I think it sucked for Jesus. Like, I think it's a sucky story for a kid and a kid's birth and a kid's life. It doesn't, it has the hallmarks of the story arc, right? Except it's backwards. If you look at a story arc, it's like you start down here, things aren't good. You have something to overcome, an obstacle, so being born as a Jew with poor and a bastard and all these different things, that fits down there. And then it kind of rises up. You excel in status, you work, you're a carpenter type thing. And then it's like, blam, you go out to the wilderness and a bunch of guys hang out with you and are completely dependent on you. Oh, okay, now you're rising to popularity. Okay, people are like seeking you and your time and trying to get healed, all the way up to when he arrives at Jerusalem for Passover. People, right, Palm Sunday, that story where people are putting the palms out and he's riding in on a donkey, on a colt, not a horse, not a triumphant entry. They call it the triumphant entry, but it's interesting because a king returning from war would be on a horse, and Jesus is like on a donkey. He's like this peaceful thing, the Prince of Peace. It's a really interesting, there's so many, again, themes in the Bible. And so he goes in and everyone's saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, which means, dude, save now. like right stinking now. Like, let's go. Let's get these Romans out now, right? And then all the way up to a few days later, they are the ones shouting, crucify him, right here, Mark 15:13. And they cried out again, crucify him. Why? What evil has he done? But they shouted all the more, crucify him. Same exact crowd, right? Like some of those people, I'm assuming, in my Happy Benjamin world, I'm assuming a lot of those people still had, sore hands from cutting the palm trees and waving them from Palm Sunday, and then they see Jesus and they see him whipped and they see him small and beaten by these Romans, beaten in the physical sense and beaten also in the metaphorical sense, and they're like, I don't want a part of that king, so kill him, get him out of here, erase him. We've already had a couple messiahs come through. Let's just get this guy out. Release for us. So Pilate, Barabbas, right? Barabbas was a murderer. He's the other side. They're choosing to embrace this physical strength and this, all right, let's beat the Romans with swords. Let's get them, versus the way that Jesus was going to win against sin and death, which was by death, by a sacrificial death. It doesn't make sense. It's a sucky story. It's not, there's no, I think on the kill thing, there's no like satisfaction. Like there's no Marvel fight scene in this. It's not like satisfying. It takes a minute. Like he comes back from the dead, but he doesn't take Jerusalem all at once. It just doesn't make sense. It's just a story that it's backwards. The whole thing is backwards. And as a storyteller, I think it's fascinating. I do think that God is the ultimate storyteller. I think he tells stories every single year, with spring, summer, fall, and winter. I do say spring, winter, summer, fall. I just do. Weird. Spring, winter, summer, fall. I think he tells stories every single time. I think he tells stories with the tadpoles. I think he tells stories with the life cycle of a slug, of a worm, of the blade of grass, like coming up and following the sun. The time lapses as they kind of flutter, the stars and the moon and flowers that follow. That, like, he's just telling stories all the time, and the dependency of creatures to the place that they live and everything. I think he's a master storyteller, the best storyteller. Every story that we tell is a slice of his story, and not anything that will surpass it in general. And that's why this bothers me. It genuinely bothers me. The story of Jesus is just, it's nonsensical how backwards it is. And for those reasons, I think as a modern storyteller, it just hurts my head, man. Like, I love the Koreans. They have an expression, "머리 아파." Like, it hurts my head, right? Like, I think that way about the story of Jesus. So this Christmas season, think about this. If you haven't read through the Gospels, they're really, really cool. It is good. It is kind of a crazy story. Know the background a little bit. I hope this sparks interest in you. And yeah, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully we'll have more foxes, and we'll keep going. Hopefully I get some sleep. We'll rock and roll. Okay, bye.